whether we call it art or not. There's something absolutely wonderful, isn't there? Just about this activity as a form of thinking and feeling through just doing, through making. I've been doing this for 40 years, just trying to make things that ask that question. What does it feel like to be alive now?
For me, art is the best tool we have for trying to understand our place in the world. And I think that's what it's done since it began, tens of thousands of years ago.
I want to go back to the very beginning.
To see the art of our ancestors.
Wow.
And understand what compelled them to create these images.
This is so moving, I mean, so tender.
Once we believed that art began with the cave paintings of Ice Age Europe. But now, new discoveries are overturning that idea. I'm going to travel across the world to piece together a new story of when and where art really began.
It still strikes me as a complete miracle.
And find out what it can tell us about who we are.
Absolutely magnificent. If we can look closely at the art of our ancestors, perhaps we will be able to reconnect with something vital that we have lost.
"14,000 years ago, a small group of humans came to this valley. This is the Vézère in the south of France. It was here, during the last ice age, that modern humans created some of the most extraordinary works of art the world has ever seen. When I was a student, this was thought to be the place where art began. And this is where my own journey began almost 40 years ago. I came here with my wife on our honeymoon. We just graduated from art school. We had a Renault 4 van and a tent, and we went on a road trip together to see the beginnings of art. So much has changed since then for me. I want to start this journey by returning here, a tiny cave called Les Combarelles. The images in this cave were made between 14 and 16,000 years ago. They aren't the earliest we know of, but they are some of the most exciting to me. Because here, you can feel the raw creative process in action as images start to emerge in the torchlight.
It's extraordinary to me to think that I was in this very cave 38 years ago. That feeling, that remembrance of going into something very secret and very sacred. Just imagine, so here is the original cave surface. I mean, the bottom, the surface of the bottom of the cave. So we're less than a meter between the top and the floor. So you're crawling on your hands and knees, just like the animals that you're going to now try to summon. Ooh. We have a horse. Oh, look at that. It's almost smiling. This is incredible. And then look at the mane with all the hairs kind of standing up like to attention. And then those ears all folded forward. He's very aware, very alert. And then those veins and lines in the neck. This is fantastic.
Using a sharpened piece of flint and scratching into the walls around them, these Ice Age artists conjured the essence of an animal.
There's so much here. Just hardly a surface that hasn't been. It's just a web. Look, look, look. Because it's fantastic. There's just so much energy in just the making of the lines, whether they found a form or not. And it's almost like they want to sort of express the energy they're feeling, because there's marks everywhere on these walls. Look, just everywhere. There is the famous lion. But isn't that magnificent? Just that feeling of the profile of the head, and then this forward, like, motion of the right leg as it moves in a way out of the inchoate, the unseen into visibility. I must say, I'm changing my mind about what we're looking at here. We can see that there are, yes, emergent figures, but actually it's the act of drawing itself that is the thing. And maybe something comes and maybe it doesn't. You just feel like the energy of legs moving through the grass. We've seen legs now already of horses, and then that last lion, and then, oh, look, this deer. Is it a reindeer? Yes, look, bending down to drink. Can you see that? Can you see that? There's the lovely curved antlers, and then you can see the brow above, and even, is that a tongue? Do you see, just there, tongue coming out from the lower lip? This is so gentle, isn't it? It's so empathic. You could spend all day here just dreaming with this wall. It's like you're reading, you know, these are marks left by human, but they're part then of the rock. And it's like the rock now is a place where you can dream and bring forth these presences. It's like this is a kind of, you know, cathedral of memory, but also joy in living things. But then, you know, things come and they go.
These engravings were made between 14 and 16,000 years ago. Just think about what that means. This was the time before farming, before the invention of metal tools, and the people who made these were foragers, hunter-gatherers. But this cave shows us that making art was something vitally important to Ice Age people. Again and again they came here, scratching and marking over and over to leave traces that have lasted for millennia.
I mean, in a way, I think I come out thinking how wide this need to leave an inscription and a trace is. All of those abstract ideas about time just totally cease to matter. There's a absolute presence, absolute presentness, and absolute presence in there. And That is art of now. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary how immediate it is.
When cave paintings were first discovered in Europe, more than a century ago, an idea took hold that they must have somehow helped us to hunt and kill the animals that they represented. But that isn't what I see here. There is a cave further up the Vézère Valley called Fond de Gaume, which I think shows that Ice Age artists had a very different intention.
This is one of the most touching images that we have. We already saw a reindeer drinking. Now we have a male and female in this incredibly intimate moment. The male standing above and painted in black, and the female, this wonderful smudge of ochre. So there is the eye. Here is the ridge. There's the eyebrow. Here's the nose. Here's the tongue. Here's the bottom of the head. And then there's the bottom of the neck. Here's the front leg. There's the back leg. And then these magnificent horns. And then here is the red deer. And you can see its head very closely. There's his eye. And it's painted and engraved, but very, very gently. The connection between the two is so gentle. This tongue just touching, seemingly, the horns of the female. The kind of conventional view is that cavemen were primitive and everything that they had to do with was to do with the hunt and killing. And it's so, through images like this and the one that we looked at earlier in Combarel, it's completely the opposite. You know, I think we just have to give up on the idea of the hairy caveman being a brute. This is so moving. I mean, so tender, so, yeah, peaceful. It seems to be about continuity. We had to live by killing, and yet we saw that in some way these animals show us our better selves.
When we created the images in this valley, there were perhaps 50,000 humans in all of Europe. Far from being the dominant hunters, we were the vulnerable ones.
If you can imagine that you were standing at the edge of a valley and you heard this sound, the sound of 1 million hooves beating on the earth. You'd hear it before you see it, and then this wave of animal life would appear. That rush, that feeling of being surrounded by a plethora of life forms in which you were very small, utterly dependent, and they seem like the wind in the trees, the water of a river, to be closer to the heartbeat of the way things are. You would want to become them. You would want to be filled with that energy, spirit.
We've just seen, as it were, a monumental expression of extreme delicacy. This is art before narcissism. This is art dedicated to the fact that we are part of a continuum of life. We live in a time where we spend more time involved in our meta-language through screens, through all the ways in which we, in a way, re-dramatize our little hopes and fears. Here is an unequivocal expression of how dependent we are on all living beings.
But not all Ice Age art conveyed such tenderness. 200 miles away in the French Pyrenees is a cave called Nio, famous for a very different kind of imagery. I'm going to see it for myself for the first time. The paintings at Nio were made between 12 and 14,000 years ago. So the people who made them would have walked through here, barefoot, carrying a flame. Being this deep inside a cave alters your perception. You become aware of your own breathing, of your heartbeat, of your footsteps. Every bump and hollow has the potential to spring to life. Were they led here by something sacred or spiritual that brought them deep inside this alien environment in order to make art? It's surely not chance that most of the images in this cave are found half a mile from the daylight, in a space called the Salon Noir.
The assurance of this drawing is extraordinary. In a way, this is the closest that I've seen to really sketching in the caves. It's somebody who's very assured of their own ability to evoke an animal. A single line. What interests me, I think, is the degree to which the main images in this hall seem to be associated with death. Very, brutally executed. And there's something very impressive about that. But at the same time, I don't get the same sense of sympathy that we've had before. My theory is crumbling in the face of the truth of this, which is, this seems to me to be more about our species' sense of superiority and the right to end the lives of other living things. So it is sad. I mean, when I see an image like that, I think, yeah, that's sad. That is the end of the life of a fine creature. So the sympathy, empathy, identification, love isn't here for me. Certainly this is the same hand I think we found the Paleolithic Picasso. He's bloody pleased with himself or herself. Bloody good at it. I can command the image of a bison, and furthermore, tell you that I'm going to kill it. Well, it's a bit like Picasso's attitude to women, and I don't care for Picasso because he was a predator, and I see these images as, in a way, there's two things: the egotism of a human that feels that they are in control, and the egotism of an artist who feels that he can command the image. And in commanding the image, commands the creature. It doesn't open the valves of my sympathy for life. Quite the reverse. And that's shocking and sad.
Like so much that has been made since, this is art in which man is asserting his own superiority.
Art is a litmus test of our values. I mean, it just tells us what we care about. It tells us what makes us feel more alive. I think that's what art's supposed to do, make us feel more alive. But often art is sidestepped into making us feel more tasteful, more powerful, more rich, more special.
And seeing this has made me reevaluate this journey. I came here because I wanted to reconnect with what art was for our ancestors and what it can still be at its best. But here, rather than discovering how art began, the images inside the cave felt like the beginning of the end. I think that what I'm looking for might lie further back in time. The next cave I'm going to see is as far away in time from the artists of Neo as they are from us in the present day. We're going back 28,000 years before the present. I've come here to the Lot Valley, 100 miles north of Neo, because there's a cave here that contains one of the earliest paintings of animals found anywhere in Europe. The cave of Peshmel was discovered in 1922 by two local boys who were actually looking for prehistoric paintings. Just like at Neo, the cave itself sets your imagination running.
Again, there's something extraordinary to me about the response to just the sheer physicality of the space. With these, these are like great. If we were in the belly of a whale and he'd just eaten his breakfast, and this was like great big mouthfuls of something, you feel somehow in here that we're being privileged to be somewhere very special.
What these two boys who first came here discovered was an extraordinary painting. Extraordinary in its beauty, but also because it wasn't created with a paintbrush or by scratching lines into the rock. It was created by human breath. Prehistorian Michel Laure-Blanchet has spent many years studying this painting to try and unlock the secrets it contains.
Here is the panel, the dotted horses panel, which all the paintings have been made with a spitting technique.
No brushes?
No brushes, no. In fact, the artist, by his breast, he projected himself with his breast onto the rock. And in this beautiful figure, beautiful painting of horses. The man who did the drawing did 6 hand stencils, and after the hands, the black dots were drawn. They are